wonderful speaker, and that we're going to enjoy tonight. A lot of information. I heard Tom speak last summer down in Waterford, and it was exciting, and I think you're going to look forward to him. Tom is a graduate from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio in '74. I graduated from college down in Ohio too. So he taught American history in Dayton, Ohio for 13 years, from '75 through '88. He has worked for the John Birch Society for the past 18 years and covers the state of Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. And so it's an honor to have him come up here from Ohio to speak with us tonight. Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and have Tom come and present to us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for having me with you this evening. I know that there are many things that are competing for your time and your interest, especially on a weekday evening. We really appreciate your presence with us this evening. Mark, in the biographical sketch, had let the cat out of the bag that I was a teacher, a public education teacher, for a period of 13 years in the Dayton, Ohio area, which is in southwest Ohio from 1975 through 1988. And sometimes when that is read during my biographical sketch, sometimes I get that look in the eye from some people, and I did detect that look on several of your faces and several of your eyes. I'm aware of that look and what that look means, and I do want you to feel, want you to rest assured that the 13 years that I did teach American history and American government, I was always a practitioner of the old Mark Twain advice that you should never let school interfere with your education. So I know that there's a lot of things which are taught today in the colleges and the schools, and I guess it's not so much. Well, it does bother me, the misrepresentation, the way in which American history today is presented at the high school level and also the college level and university level. The thing which I find even more alarming, so to speak, is the omission aspect, the things which that are not even mentioned, which really play a critical role in American history. And a lot of people have a lot to learn. I also, when I was younger, I had a lot to learn, and since we've already gone down the road of confession a little bit, and I think it was the humorist Will Rogers who once said that confession may be good for the soul, but it's bad for my reputation. And this may well shoot my credibility with you for the rest of the evening, but I'll confess again and get this off my chest. As a 21-year-old kid in 1972, the first time I could vote in a presidential election, I voted for George McGovern for president. But ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I know, and I think that myself also. I sort of raised my eyes to the heavens and say, goodness, how could I have done that? But I guess the message I want to convey, even with that confession, folks, is that if there's hope for me, there's hope for anybody. And but let's get down to some serious business. I'm not here tonight to throw you any ideological red meat. I don't think that really is necessary. I'm not here tonight to entertain you. I'm here to simply present facts to you, to speak the truth. I'm not making any promises. I'm offering to you only challenges and possibilities, and hopefully some opportunities. And we use that word opportunity. I always think back to the epic play written by William Shakespeare in Julius Caesar, Act 4, Scene 3. Shakespeare is going to write. He writes in what's called iambic pentameter. He writes that there is a tide in the affairs of man, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted all the village of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea we are now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. So the which we live in today, folks, we live in a very fast-paced lifestyle. Things are changing very, very rapidly. It's a very fluid situation. The possibilities, the opportunities that we have now may not be with us in a year or two from now. So the opportunity, the climate that we have right now, we need to take advantage of it. Or, like Shakespeare said, will our ventures, will they eventually just sort of pass us by, and we will never have that opportunity again. I want to tell you a little bit about the John Birch Society, and if somebody said to me, okay, you've talked too long already, shut up and give me a one-word definition for the word John Birch Society, my one-word definition would be the word Constitution. Because I think the principles embodied in this document, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, really are what the John Birch Society really stands for. Now, sometimes we're asked the question, now did John Birch, did he start the John Birch Society? The answer to that question is no. And John Birch was actually born in the year of 1918. He's actually born abroad. He's born in India. His parents are missionaries. And John Birch himself grows up in Macon, Georgia, and he likewise becomes a missionary. A very, very intelligent individual. He'll graduate from Mercer University in 1939, summa cum laude, #1 in his class. And then he goes on to attend a college in Fort Worth, Texas, known as a Bible Baptist Seminary. This is usually a 2-year institution of study. Birch is so smart, though, that he actually gets done in 1 year. Then in June of 1940, after graduation, he goes to China. He serves, of course, as a missionary. And then, of course, December 7th of 1941, the whole world changes after the Japanese sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. And the world itself, the major nations of the world at that time are at war. John Birch will, and this is a picture of John Birch on the left. He's actually been given the Legion of Merit by General Clersonal of the Flying Tigers. Birch will join the United States Army. He'll work for the General Clersonal of the Flying Tigers. He'll serve in a dual capacity as missionary and intelligence agent. Probably most of the individuals in this room, maybe some of you are not aware of this, but the first time that the Americans bombed the Japanese was in April of 1942, the famous Doolittle raid over Tokyo, where at that time we did not have air supremacy over the Pacific Ocean. So the American planes, the bombers led by Colonel Doolittle, fly off of American aircraft carriers. They fly west into China, and they bomb Tokyo. They fly westward, and eventually, and they knew this would happen, they're going to run out of fuel. So they crash land or parachute out of their planes, and then they're on their own. Birch himself, being very intelligent, very quickly had learned the various Chinese dialects. John Birch will rescue Colonel Jimmy Doolittle and 5 of his men. During World War II, Birch himself is very highly decorated, and then August 25th of 1945, Captain John Birch, in an American uniform on a mission for the United States Army, is going to be shot and bayoneted to death by the Communist Chinese. And this is where, back then we called it propaganda, we would now call it spin. This is where the spin war began to play out. The United States State Department at this time was cozying up to Mao Zedong, who is a communist. And the attitude of the United States State Department is, oh, this Chiang Kai-shek, he's a bad guy, and this Mao Zedong, he's a good guy. And, there's rumors he might be a communist, but he's really misunderstood. You see, the followers of Mao Zedong, they're not bad guys, they're just agrarian reformers, and they're misunderstood. Well, as it turns out, Mao Zedong is the biggest mass murderer in history. A figure I'm going to give you here, these figures with, as far as genocide goes, they're incomprehensible, at least to me. We don't know for sure how many people died during the reign of Mao Zedong. The best figures range from 34 million people killed to 64 million people killed. So the United States State Department doesn't want to put a bad spin on their relations with the Communist Chinese. So the Birch family in Macon, Georgia in September of 1945, they're told that their son is deceased, but they're not really told that their son has been killed by the Communist Chinese, who were also our allies in World War II. So the circumstances, the total circumstances surrounding his death are covered up for the next 5 years. But then about the year 1950, the word begins to get out. And so finally in the year of 1950, the Birch family is going to find out what the truth is surrounding their son's death. This book is written in the year of 1954 by Robert Welsh, the guy who starts the John Birch Society. And then what he does in December of 1958, he'll give a 2-day presentation in Indianapolis, Indiana. The first day they lay out the problems confronting this country, and then the second day they come up with this educational antidote known as the John Birch Society. This book itself is, the Blue Book of the John Birch Society is actually a verbatim transcript of the 2-day presentation. Robert Welsh will name the Birch Society, names the John Birch Society with the permission of the Birch, George and Ethel Birch down in Macon, Georgia. Now, how many of you, during the course of your lifetimes, have eaten a candy bar called the Sugar Daddy? Okay, I have to. Okay, the Sugar Daddy is known, it's sort of caramel, and it's very, very hard. And the thinking back in the 1920s was during the summer it would not melt. But the candy bar, the Sugar Daddy, was invented by Robert Welsh, the guy who started the John Birch Society. Robert Welsh is, in a word, he's a genius. He's reading at the age of 2, knows his multiplication tables by the age of 4, by the age of 6. He was studying algebra. By the age of 7, he had read Ridpath's 9-volume History of the World. Also by the age of 7, he'll begin the study of and will eventually master not only Latin, but French and German. He'll graduate from high school at the age of 12, goes on to attend the University of North Carolina, where he graduates at the age of 16, will also attend the U.S. Naval Academy and Harvard Law School. And then in the 1920s, he'll get into the candy business. He becomes the vice president of sales. And in the late 1950s, he became concerned about the drift in this country, domestically, economically, in the direction of socialism. And in terms of foreign policy, this concept that the United States always had to involve itself in various hotspots throughout the world. And then, like I said, in December of 1958, he'll start this education organization known as the John Birch Society. Sometimes we're asked the question, has the John Birch Society ever been investigated? And the answer to that question is yes. What had happened was this. December of 1960, Nikita Khrushchev, the premier of the Soviet Union, sent out word, this infant John Birch Society, which by this time is only 2 years old, it must be smashed. It must be subjected to the torments of hell. So what we see in the United States materializing, primarily in the part of the media, was a smear against the John Birch Society. We know that there was a connection between the Soviet Union and the Communist Party USA, because the Communist Party USA is going to spread some information that actually makes its way into some major publications in this country. And for example, Time magazine. One of the mistakes the Soviet Union did in their research regarding this, by then just 2-year-old John Birch Society, they referred to this Birch Society as being named after John Birch, Captain John Birch. They referred to him, though, as a captain in the Navy. And so what happened was, from Moscow to the Communist Party USA, this lie was repeated, or wasn't a lie, it was a mistake on their part, that he was actually in the Navy. And we see this actually picked up by the Communist Party USA, and eventually this mistake also makes its way to Time magazine in March of 1961.